What is up, everyone? So today I'll be talking about the Aizawa update, which is basically Aizawa after release, and a lot of players have been quite disappointed in the state of the game. Not because of balance, so to say, but Aizawa's release was pretty lackluster in that the character is pretty buggy. He has a lot of broken mechanics with his alpha ability sometimes just not really connecting, and his special ability, which is the erase, the quirk erase, actually does sometimes glitch out the game. In case you guys don't know, sometimes if there are too many Aizawas within the lobby, in the practice lobby, and they all use their alpha quirk, it can actually kick people out of the match. And in addition, there's been a lot of concern with the gacha in the game. Like, most people know that the monetization in the game isn't the best. It's really expensive for players that even want to do the microtransactions to try and get the rolls, because the rates aren't very good, and the pity system refreshed when Aizawa's release happened. So this means that the points that people have been saving up, it's all for naught. It basically just reset to zero, so players cannot buy or use their points effectively. And a lot of people have been complaining that the banner reset in around, I want to say around 2 weeks, and that's not enough time for people to actually use those pity points. The good news is the developers are actually holding some surveys, player feedback, and I do believe they're trying to improve upon the game. This is made visible and evident by the fact that they hold so many maintenance updates. Like, I'm sure active players know that there have been so many maintenance updates, and these have been very much emergency updates, and every time they do try going for help, they're trying to fix the game, more or less. And the matchmaking issues that were in the game before have, for the most part, been dealt with. There was a time when people kept getting bot lobbies, people kept just not being able to find matches, and I do want to say that they did fix this problem. But there are more and more problems that do exist that, once again, the Aizawa update, the Aizawa release, he came out in a very lackluster state. I do want to say that he's one of the worst characters in the game right now. This isn't to say that he can't be good. Like, every character in the game can be used effectively if people do master them. And the issue with Aizawa is, yeah, he doesn't have the best mobility because his alpha does basically force a kick upon the grapple. Like, there's like an end animation that really doesn't work all that well because the game does prioritize high mobility, and standing still to throw out the kick isn't very optimal. Just think of it as like Mr. Compress's Gamma ability, which has that animation before he goes up in the air, and Aizawa's is kind of like that, but the other way around. So there's an animation towards the end. Granted, it does do damage. Aizawa definitely lacks damage as a whole, and yeah, the character can't have it all. Froppy needs balancing. She's not a balanced character. Anyway, Aizawa has an issue with dealing a lot of damage, and because his alpha ability is very limited when traversing upwards, that makes him not the best character, and it would have been all excusable if he wasn't literally broken. There are so many bugs regarding his kit, and I can't say I can label them off the bat, but a lot of people on the Reddit communities have been commenting on the bugs and the state of the game, and that makes excitement for these updates very... It does force players to cater their expectations, and I don't say that in a good way, because new characters releases for My Hero Ultra Rumble should be something that players are looking forward to, excited about, and it should incite their love for the game. But how Aizawa dropped with bugs, not being very good, and just the gacha essentially resetting, pity points disappearing, there has been some disconnect going about the community. And this isn't to say that the game itself is bad. The game is excellent. When it functions properly, without bugs, without getting kicked out, it feels absolutely phenomenal. It's one of the best battle royales I've played in a really long time. And personally, I don't even really enjoy battle royales as a whole. But then, My Hero Ultra Rumble, I've been enjoying substantially, and that does speak a lot about how much love has gone into the game. The developers are definitely trying to improve the game, and they've handled a lot of the issues pretty well, but the monetization still hasn't changed. And I do want to say that the monetization surrounding the game is a problem on both ends, because it's so expensive to the point where most free-to-play players will stay that way. They don't want to use any money because the rates for the microtransactions are so absurd and there's no guarantee in purchasing characters, so most people just try to stay away from the gacha because they know it is a trap that forces even some YouTubers hundreds of dollars before they manage to pull a character. And when you think about it in that way, that means that even though there are a good amount of players playing My Hero Ultra Rumble, the developers themselves are probably not even gaining that much money from the love that they put in, because the monetization is just so skewed, so improperly done that there are so many players that even though they do enjoy the game, they can't in good faith drop money on the game because, like, I'll talk about my own personal example. I've had around maybe 60 total hours put into the game the past 3 weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks. Either way, I've been pretty much living on My Hero Ultra Rumble, but I haven't spent a dime on it because I know how gacha works and I can analyze pretty much just how bad the microtransactions in this game really are. Like, I have no problems participating in the gacha system if the microtransactions and the exchange rates are reasonable, but in this case, it really isn't. I'm not gonna pull up the exact rates, but for those that have actually looked into it, you guys should probably know already how kind of atrocious the microtransaction system really is. Now, I'm not gonna pull it up because that's kind of a lot of work, and I'm trying to minimize the amount of work that goes into the video. Anyway, like, I do want to support the game, and I play a lot, and I even did the player survey myself, but when it comes to actually paying for those microtransactions, I can't in good faith really support it because I feel like I'd be just wasting my money at the gacha system. And a lot of people on Reddit have shown like, oh, I used like 900 rolls, I still didn't get Aizawa, who's at 1%, and then it's very discouraging to see something like that. And if there were better rates or even more things that I could purchase directly with money, I would 100% do that. Like, if they had like a flat fee, like, oh, $10 for this character, sure, I would throw that money down right away. But then having it tied down behind the gacha system isn't the best. And like, if they had a better pity system where like, oh, okay, like, you know, I'll get a guaranteed UR after this many, or like I'll get like a guaranteed character after like 100 rolls, like, sure, I would be more okay investing in it. But the PT system does refresh in around 2 weeks, and 2 weeks isn't really enough time for players to accumulate the PT system because it takes around like 200 points. And I remember last time I gained around 50 points, and that's with me playing the game for around like 60 hours in like 2 weeks. That's a lot of gameplay. And when I'm playing the game that much and I only have around 50 points, granted I am a free-to-play player, like, I can't realistically justify investing all the way to 200 and actually managing to use the PT system. And from what I know, I don't really know anyone or any players that have actually managed to make use of the PT system. In essence, nobody that I have interacted with on the social media, the communities, have actually managed to gain 200 points in the PT system, and that in itself should be quite a problem. And okay, like, people have already known this game has been gacha literally since release, and I think Aizawa's release is helping people realize exactly how kind of warped the gacha system really is. And I'm not saying that the game is bad. The game, free to play, is very, very, very fun. Like, if it weren't for the game crashing so often, so many of the characters bugging, like Aizawa's bug, like Uraraka's bug, her alpha was broken for the longest time, but the fact that the developers are handling these and are very aware of what's going on, I think that's great news. And I do want to say the game will continue improving, but the question really is, will it improve fast enough before the player base does get way too fed up with the changes, or the lack of changes, I should say. Like, take for example the previous patch update, their first one since release, where they nerfed Bakugo, they nerfed Midoriya, they even buffed Kirishima, and they handled a lot of the weaker characters and nerfed the top tier ones. And as of now, the gameplay is shockingly balanced. There are some small outliers like Froppy and potentially Bakugo. It really depends, because Bakugo really is like if you're really good, then you'll play really good, but if you're not that good, then you just simply miss all your shots. Anyway, like, the gameplay is pretty balanced. Like, I wouldn't say there's an overwhelming like character that is labeled quote unquote OP like Bakugo was before his nerf, and every character or most characters do have their own place in the meta. I do think that characters like Kendo and Aizawa do need buffs to help out with their overall kit. Like Kendo lacks the mobility to be able to keep up with people, and she doesn't really have range either, so with melee and no mobility, she just doesn't really fit that well into team comp. Like her shield is useful if her allies play well. And the same thing can be said with Aizawa. Like on his own, he's not very good, but then if he plays with like a party of three, like, then sure, like he can see great use because he can actually use his quirk. But then that assumes that cooperation is a thing, and when you're queuing up at randoms, like most people that have been playing the game for a while and have been like solo queuing or just going into games alone, they know that randoms really do be a hit or miss. And then there's actually another interesting thing that I guess this will be the last one I talk about is new game modes. The game does feel very, very nice to continue just spamming. There's like a learning curve, but then eventually this will get boring, which is when we will need new game modes. And developers have actually expressed that they kind of might do a new game mode. Like if you look at the player survey, they do ask the players what kind of new game mode do they think that they would enjoy the most. And they even had like all players vs like a boss, or like kind of like Dragon Ball The Breakers, or even like a 2v2 to be 2v2 game mode. Like they definitely do have ideas on their mind, but it really is hard to predict what direction the game will go in, because I don't think the developers themselves know that quite yet. But one thing is for certain, the developers are working very hard on trying to update and to keep the game alive and fix the errors, and they're actively communicating with the community. And a lot of people don't think that they are, but I don't think that these people realistically have been trying to contact the developers, because if they actually look at the changes that have been happening, all of these changes, especially to the balance of the game, has been directly from community feedback. So when you take that into account, I don't think you can realistically argue that the developers are ignoring the community, especially with their new player feedback survey that they released. I'm pretty sure the developers are still actively and very, very actively trying to improve the game. Anyway, that's all I have to say for today. Just enjoy the gameplay, and I hope you guys have a lovely day. Also, like and subscribe for more content.